Hey everyone, what's going on? It's been a while since I made a video, but my girlfriend had a baby on August 31st, so that was taking up a little bit of time. And she had leave, so I was gonna have all this free time to make a bunch of videos and just stay really on track and so on. And for whatever reason, my internet just decided to quit working. I mean, it started out just cutting out a couple times, and I got a hold of the internet company and they came out to fix it. And then after he left, it just quit working altogether. And I called them back, and then it took like a whole week for them to come back out. And then they put in a new line, they said. And 5 minutes after he left, it quit working again. It didn't work. So I just finally said, screw it. I've been at this company forever. It's small town Iowa. There's not really that many other companies, but there's one other company that other people have in town, and I've heard that they were a decent company and whatnot. And I just finally said, screw it, switched because this other company screwed me over so many times. Like it cuts out, like a couple years back, it cut out like all summer, and I called them all the time, and they never fixed the problem. They wouldn't give me any money off my bill. And then in November that year, we got a different debit card because ours expired, and they disconnected our internet. I didn't even know that I didn't make the payment. And then I had to pay a reconnection fee and everything just to have the internet back, which is a joke. It didn't work all summer, and they still made me pay the bill, and then I missed one payment and they disconnect it, made me pay a reconnection fee. But that's the way the world works. Like one time I got pulled over for a speeding ticket or a seatbelt ticket, and I was wearing my seatbelt, and the cop said I wasn't. So I went to court and pled not guilty, and the judge let me out of it, but I still had to pay the court costs, even though I won. So really, I lost because I still had to pay like $50 in court costs when I could have just paid like the $100 some seatbelt ticket. And I didn't even. I was wearing my seatbelt anyway. It's just the way the world works. It's just a joke. No, like you know, it's not for the. It's not for the individual. It's all about money and whatever else. But I'm not going to go on a big rant about that. But there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on, and I wasn't even able to blog stuff for the last like 6 days because the new internet company decided that they're not going to come out. They rescheduled 4 times before they finally came out today and installed it. Something to do with the flooding that's going on by the Missouri and whatnot, but it still doesn't make that much sense how they couldn't come out and install it, and they kept forgetting about us or something. But whatever, we got the internet again, and my girlfriend's going back to work tomorrow, so I figured I'd try to make a video tonight. And you know, I find it odd that the internet did this out of nowhere too. Like it's been working fine, and then it just starts doing this, and it happens right when I'm like right on topic of a lot of things that are going on. The last video that I put out, I talked about there was this major oil theme that was going on, and how it was synced up to Saudi Arabia. And then, in September, we got all these stories about oil and Saudi Arabia, right? We had the oil legend T. Boone Pickens died. And then we had a story about the Saudi princess and something to do with her bodyguard in France. And if you follow what I've been saying, I've been talking about France a lot. We had Sarah Palin getting a divorce and Alaska. And I talked about how Alaska was important because of the oil reserves. And then we got the drone strikes that knocked out half of the Saudi Arabia's oil supply and whatnot. And that was a big deal, right? All about oil that's going on. And this theme is still going on, but I'm not going to mention it in this video. Maybe I'll make a different video. The birth of my son is really synced up to Aleister Crowley as well. So, I mean, it's just, he was born 93 days before the 72nd anniversary of Aleister Crowley dying at the age of 72. And, think about Aleister Crowley and the 72 demons of the Goetia. Remember he conjured up the demon or whatever it is that supposedly looked like a gray alien. Think about all the UFO stuff, Area 51. And, they just came out and said that that was a UFO, then that Tom DeLonge video and whatnot. But AWAS, the name of that demon, equals 72 in Gematria. And it might be important, honestly, because there's something important to Aleister Crowley, or Crowley, however you say his name. And his birthday was the date of 10/12, which is also Columbus Day. And I'm going to talk a lot about The Dark Knight, which is Batman, in this post, or this video. And, the Knights of Columbus are pretty important. If you write out Knights of Columbus in Gematria, Knights of Columbus, it equals 215. Just like if you read out The Dark Knight, equals 215. Just like if you read out Aleister Crowley, equals 215. And remember earlier this year, we had the Aurora shooting in Illinois, and it was on the date of 2/15. And that was the same day that Donald Trump declared the wall as a national emergency. But it was all synced up to Batman, right? And Donald Trump saying he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair in 2015. And I talked about how that was important to Slipknot playing the first time ever at the Iowa State Fair, and a number of other things. Just before the date of 2/15, they updated us on a story about the duck boat or duck bus crash that happened on the Aurora Bridge in Seattle in 2015, which was just after Donald Trump said he was Batman. And the Yvonne Craig, who was Batgirl, died that same month, and James Holmes, the Batman shooter, was sentenced. And, a guy who dressed up like Batman went to hospitals, also died that month. There was all of this stuff that was synced up to Batman. And now we have the film Joker that just came out in the United States on the date of 10/4. And I noticed this pattern with South Park. South Park's always been one of my favorite shows. I've talked about a lot of synchronicity that I've had with South Park, and just South Park in general has just a lot of interesting themes and things that are going on. Team America was synced up to the Paris attacks of 2015, right? They have the terrorist attack in the beginning of Team America in France, and then it goes back to everyone has AIDS. And it was important to the Magic Johnson episode of South Park where Magic Johnson had AIDS, and Charlie Sheen came out and said he had AIDS. He had tiger's blood, and then they had a Missouri Tiger hunger strike right on that same time. But anyway, in regards to this, so I was watching the new South Park, and the whole theme of the South Park is Mexican Joker. And once again, reminding us of the border wall, but also reminding us of the Joker. And think about Batman and Aurora. Think about South Park and Colorado and Aurora, Colorado, right? And there's this big joke about Mexican Joker. So I wrote a blog post talking about how I think the South Park is synced up to this new Joker movie that's coming out. And there's all of these things that are going on with it. Maybe I'll talk about this in a second, but I want to stay on with the theme here. So the next week, the newest South Park episode that comes out is all about China, right? Let's see if I have this post here. They make this one where they're making fun of China and whatever, they're changing their content to make it happy in China, right? And the Chinese officials and whatnot. And we get this story just after we get the story of the Houston Rockets general manager, Daryl Morey, or however you pronounce his name. He had tweeted about China and whatnot, and then China cut the ties with the Houston Rockets. And he tweeted that on the date of 10/4, the same day that the Joker movie came out. And if you go back to, just go back and watch like some of these videos that I've put out this summer, all about the Lakers and how it syncs up to the Houston Rockets and how the Houston Rockets are really important to China. I documented about all kinds of stuff. That's why I talked about how I thought Dwight Howard was important to this narrative with DeMarcus Cousins signing with the Los Angeles Lakers and Kobe tearing his Achilles, because Kobe tore his Achilles when Dwight Howard was on the team. And then they went on to beat the Rockets to make the playoffs, and then they got beat by the Warriors in the playoffs. And then Dwight Howard left and went to the Houston Rockets. And Mike D'Antoni was the coach of the Lakers that time. He's the coach of the Houston Rockets. And Jeremy Lin also was synced up to the Lakers and the Rockets. And Jeremy Lin, along with Yao Ming, who has the connection to the Rockets, it's all about China, right? And Jeremy Lin now, he plays for the Beijing Ducks. He is going to play in China now. And that's important because think about the duck theme, the duck boat on the Aurora Bridge. And Jeremy Lin's going to play for the Beijing Ducks now. You know, it's very important. And I even documented that in my blog. I talked about how when Jeremy Lin went to China, I said there's something important to how it syncs up to the Aurora Bridge and Aurora and Batman and whatnot. And he has the same birthday as Kobe Bryant as well. Kobe Bryant's birthday, August 23rd. Jeremy Lin's birthday, August 23rd. The same day Dwight Howard comes back to the Los Angeles Lakers. You know, and then sure enough, the season begins, and what do you get us? We get a story about how the China is cutting ties with the Houston Rockets, right? All this big narrative that I've been documenting about and talking about is just craziness. But it syncs up with South Park doing this as well. South Park making fun of China the same time we get this story with the Houston Rockets, for the fact that, if you remember the Dark Knight Batman shooting, in the previews of that movie, they had a preview of the movie Skyfall, the James Bond one. And on that movie, they had a building that said the word Aurora. And then Aurora, Colorado got shot up later on that midnight showing, right? In Aurora. Well, that building just so happens to be a building called the Aurora Plaza that is in Shanghai, China, right? You see what I'm saying? It is all synced up to this. That's why South Park did it. That's why South Park has the Mexican Joker. And to even prove my point even more tonight, South Park, people wouldn't catch on to this if they didn't know that it's a Chinese pig year. The whole episode of South Park tonight was a joke about how Cartman didn't want to get his shots, and he greased himself up and he ran like and squealed like a pig, and then the doctor couldn't catch him and nobody could catch him, so they had to call on this specialized pig catcher named Murph or something. Can't remember what his full name was, but he came in to catch Cartman and he squealed like a pig, and everything was all about pigs, right? It's because it's the Chinese pig year, and that's what they're mocking. And I guarantee the general public of the United States has no idea that that is why South Park did this in this episode, because it's a Chinese pig year. And I've talked about how this is really important for months now, since March, and how the Francis Bacon ciphers are important to the Chinese pig year. That's why it's important to the state of Iowa and Slipknot playing at the Iowa State Fair, and Donald Trump saying he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, because Iowa has the most pig farms, and Slipknot, also the only member in their band who has ever died, was Paul Gray, and his alter ego, he was also known as the Pig, right? It was all about pig stuff. And that Chinese pig year, it began on the date of 2/5, and remember how the State of the Union got pushed back because of the government shutdown over the wall to the date of 2/5, and Trump equals 25 in Gematria. And then in July, they approved $2.5 billion for Donald Trump to build the wall. And then we got the Gilroy Garlic Festival that was synced up to China because China is the leading producer of garlic. And that was all synced up to some other things I was talking about. And then just after that, we got the El Paso Walmart shooting. And El Paso is important to the wall symbolism and Walmart because El Paso has already started building a wall without the funds from Donald Trump. Right? So think about China with the Great Wall. And before DeMarcus Cousins went to the New Orleans Pelicans, the Pelicans played the Houston Rockets in 2016 in the preseason in China, and a guy named Bobby Brown of the Houston Rockets graffitied on the Great Wall of China, right? And then the next season, DeMarcus Cousins tore his Achilles when he played against the Rockets. And his first game with the Pelicans, they played against the Rockets. So there's this giant Rocket theme that is going on. And hopefully that makes sense, you know. It's all about the Dark Knight, China, and South Park is absolutely coding all of this in there. Let me find my post here. It's really important to space, too. And, just think about Houston, the space theme, right? Houston, we have a problem, space, so on. And earlier this year, right around the time that Donald Trump addressed the nation about building the wall, we got a story about how China had landed on the dark side of the moon. And in 2017, I was talking all about how China was synced up to a space theme and it was synced up to the Houston Rockets. And that's why we got the death of Isaiah Thomas's sister named China, and she died in a Toyota Camry. And the Rockets played in the Toyota Center and a bunch of other things. It was synced up to China. And if you write out China in Gematria, it equals 35, just like if you write out NASA. And I talked about Kevin Durant at the time, who wore the number 35. And what did we talk about? I think King James equals 35. And LeBron James, King James, he's going to be 35 years old this year. And DeMarcus Cousins was important to the Kings. And Isaiah Thomas was important to the Kings. And his sister died in King County, Washington. Toyota Camry, and Camry means crown. And don't forget that, Isaiah Thomas's sister died in a car that looked exactly like the car that my girlfriend drove. And then a week later, Isaiah Thomas lost one of his teeth. And he lost one of his front teeth. And that was the same tooth that my girlfriend earlier in the year had lost. So there's something crazy about that going on. But I pointed out, too, if you write out Houston Rockets, it equals 175. Just like if you write out Los Angeles Lakers, they equal 175. And this is important because in Satanic Gematria, NASA equals 175. And if you look up South Park, hopefully the internet will load here. It's been going pretty slow here. It was working earlier, but I don't know, it's slowing down a lot. If you look up South Park, remember that episode of South Park where Butters shoots everybody in the dick and Cartman got mad? And it was all about Cartman thinking that the Chinese were going to be taken over. I don't know if it's going to load it. It's taken forever, but it was called The China Problem, and that episode just so happens to be the 175th episode of South Park. And that's also in the same season of the one called Tonsil Trouble, where Cartman gets AIDS and they have to find Magic Johnson to figure out how that he got rid of his. And I can't remember what the amount of money is, I wonder what the amount of money is that they had to inject, right? It might have been, I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was 175,000 now that I'm thinking about it, but who knows? But, it's all synced up to the stuff that's going on here. Also, think about how the Batman shooting was on the date of 7/20, right? The Batman shooting was on the anniversary of the moon landing. And it just happened to be the 43rd anniversary of the moon landing. And in Gematria, if you write out Aurora, it equals 43, right? It was the 43rd anniversary of the moon landing. This year, it's going to be the 51st anniversary of the moon landing. And the word moon equals 51, and so does the word conspiracy. So does tinfoil hat, Area 51. So does Air Force. All of these things in connection to conspiracy, 9/11 even equals 51, right? Everybody calls it 9/11. So it's going to be the 51st anniversary of the moon landing, which is also the anniversary of the Aurora Batman shooting. And Batman just so happens to equal 51 in Gematria. And so does South Park. South Park equals 51 in Gematria. So there is something really important to this space theme. Also, what's interesting, too, in regards to other countries and whatnot, earlier in the year, I documented about the Dalai Lama and how the Dalai Lama was somehow synced up to this narrative because he had to flee Tibet to go to India, right? And it was from the Tibetan uprising, and the Chinese were attacking, and he had to flee to go to India. And earlier this year, he had like chest pains or something of the sort. And then we got the death of the Indian politician named Sheila Dikshit, of all names, Sheila Dikshit. But she died on the date of 7/20. right? The anniversary of the Aurora shooting. And that's interesting because just the other day, or September 22nd, the leader of India was in Houston and he gave a speech, and then Donald Trump praised him about how they're going to have the first ever NBA games played in India, right? So there's something really important to that. And think about Batman too. I need to go back and review the Batman movies, but Batman Begins, I'm pretty sure he goes to like somewhere in that area, like Tibet, or he goes to some area over there where that's where he learns how to train. He gets put in the prison, right? And he has to climb out the hole, right? I can't remember it all, but I have to go back and watch the movie. But there's something important to that area, and the Dalai Lama and how the Dalai Lama syncs up to it. Talked a lot about the number 310 as well all year, and South Park was like one of the reasons why the troll theme that I've talked about, that I'll leave links in the description, that was synced up to Slipknot and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And, we had the death of Peter Fonda earlier in August, and I talked about how he was in the remake of 310 to Yuma, but also the guy who plays Batman, who is the Dark Knight, he also is the other guy who co-stars in that movie, 310 to Yuma, the remake. He's also Moses, and I can't remember what movie it is, Exodus, and that's been important to some things, but I'm going to skip over that. Trying to think here. In regards to this too, with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in the Batman Begins movie, the guy who takes over Wayne Manor while he's gone is Rutger Hauer, another guy who died earlier this year, just before the garlic shooting that's synced up to China, because China's the leading producer of garlic. And anyway, that guy's the main vampire on the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And he died just after Luke Perry had died, and I talked about this big theme with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the number 310. So it's interesting that guy's also in Batman, and he's the guy who's like taken over for the Wayne Enterprises while this guy's gone. And he goes to China in the first one. I don't remember. He goes to China in one of the movies, and I think it's just the Dark Knight. The one that's called the Dark Knight. I believe a big piece of it is he goes to China. There's even a character called the Chechen, which is interesting because the first ever conspiracy, video that I put up on YouTube, I talked about Kobe Bryant tearing his Achilles and how it was synced up to the Boston bombing, and everybody was calling the one guy, however you pronounce his name, they were saying that it was pronounced like Joker, and his brother was Tamerlan, and Tamerlan was synced up to the character of Iron Man. And then I talked about how Dwight Howard was Superman, and there was just this big theme. But the Dark Knight, I think it's just the Dark Knight. I wrote Rises, but there's a character called the Chechen, and the Tsarnaev brothers, the Boston bombing guys, they are supposedly from Chechnya or whatever, Chechen. They're Chechen ethnicity. So it just makes me wonder. The Lakers are even important to the Joker with Jack Nicholson, a huge Lakers fan, and so on, right? So the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff that I was talking about with the number 310, it all began because the mainstream media was running a story about a 310-mile dust storm that was in Australia. And then I saw this side story about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I found out that the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out on the date of 310. And if you write out Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it equals 310. And if you write out Buffy Summers, the character's name in the movie, that equals 310. So it was all this 310 stuff. And it just makes me wonder, because Heath Ledger, the Joker who died in one of these movies, he's from Australia originally, right? And oddly enough, just the other night I had some weird synchronicity with the movie. What is it? A Knight's Tale. So something important to knights, I know the word knight. I think the word knight equals 88 too, or maybe knights equals 88. Just like Trump, just like how the Batman movie or the Joker movie just came out on the day, leaving 88 days in the year. And Aurora equals 88. You know, pretty important to the narrative there. I don't know if I mentioned this. Did I mention this in this? Houston Rockets equals 76 as well. And that's important because Joker equals 76. And the movie just so happened to come out on 10/4, which was 76 days after the anniversary of the Batman shooting. And the movie released in Venice for the 76th anniversary of some film festival, right? So the word Joker equals 76. Comes out 76 days after the Batman shooting anniversary in America. And then it comes out on August 31st in Venice for the 76th anniversary of some type of film festival. I did mention Lil Wayne a whole bunch too in some previous posts when I talked about aliens. I'm not going to go back to that, but remember Lil Wayne had the song called My Homies Still that came out just before the Batman shooting, and they had the girl that was dressed up in what looked like a Batman outfit or similar to Batman, and then he had the 12 skeletons or whatever it was in the movie theater, and then the movie theater at Batman got shot up, and he talks about the Illuminati in the video even. But remember we had the death of Nipsey Hussle earlier this year, and that's important because Nipsey Hussle was dating Lauren London, who was the ex-girlfriend of Lil Wayne and whatnot. So there's something important to it. Bruce Wayne, Lil Wayne. Wayne's World is set in Aurora, Illinois. And that's why it was important to the date of 2/15 as well. The Dark Knight equals 2/15. The guy who played the Joker in the TV series, his birthday was 2/15. It's interesting, you know? All these things I'm talking about all synced up. South Park and Francis Bacon equals 166. And so does pigs and Jewish. And it's also the year of the pig in Chinese year, but it's called an Earth pig that equals 166 in Francis Bacon. It also equals 84, and the Joker movie came out on the 8th month and 4th day of the pig year. And then Cartman acts like a pig because of he doesn't want to get vaccines, right? Vaccines equal 166 in Francis Bacon. And the whole reason I even realized the Francis Bacon thing way back when was because of this narrative from 2016 with a guy named Montegraph on YouTube and whatnot. And I was listening to the Gematria effect, and this lady called in about how she was his next victim, and he was trying to hurt her pet pigs. And then I was sitting next to two stuffed animal pet pigs that my daughter had called them. And that lady's name equaled 166. And then this guy made a video about the number 166 days after my birthday. And my uncle had died in this mysterious car crash right after Zach's house got crashed into, after this guy told him that he needs to watch out for Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas Eve a car crashed into his house. Then my uncle died, all synced up to the number 166. Then some guy called James Jumper he made a blog mocking my blog, and he referred to me as Nad, my name in reverse, and it was before we knew reverse gematria. And, then his name equaled 166. And when you write out reverse gematria, it equals 166. It was all about flipping the script that year. And remember the big deal was with the Colts were supposed to go to the Super Bowl, and then they ended up losing on the same day Zach's house got crashed into. And everyone's saying it was about flipping the script. Then we learned the importance of reverse gematria, like flipping it, whatever, going backwards. If you look up on my blog, I found this story about how Andrew Luck still had a flip phone. There was a story about how Andrew Luck broke his phone, and then he got a new flip phone that we got earlier that year. So, talk about how they planned on flipping the script. That was part of the script. Flipping the script. It was all synced to Andrew Luck. That's why Andrew Luck just announced his retirement. On the date synced up to August 11th. So it was Vince McMahon's birthday. The WWE is all about the number 51, just like Batman. Trying to think if I forgot anything. I'm just so far behind on these blog posts and whatnot. It's craziness. I've had so much synchronicity. I'm trying to write a book, which I got about 80 some pages now. 49 of the pages got deleted somehow, just randomly. I don't understand that either. Came home one day and like no one was even on my computer, but somehow 49 of the pages were absolutely deleted. But thankfully, I had it backed up in my email, so I only had to write like a few pages that I had just wrote that I didn't save. But it's going to be more about, symbolism. There's going to be tons of gematria, but Zach already has a great book with tons of gematria examples, just countless examples. And there's just, I'm trying to make it a little bit more about synchronicity and synchro mysticism, I guess is what it's called, finding the meaning within these things that go on, because there's all kinds of just crazy things that go on, The odds of it are just stupid. Like, my grandma, remember when my grandma died? It was 56 days after my neighbor had died, and he was also my grandma's neighbor. And they were born the same year, exactly 56 days apart. And his name equaled 56 and a bunch of other stuff, like what are they, that's not the Illuminati coding out my life, There's a lot more to what's going on. Not saying that there aren't people who are using this knowledge, but there's a lot of other things that are going on. And it's funny, like I feel like everybody does have their own like path in this knowledge, right? Like everybody has different memories. Everybody has, you know, a different way to see the world and a different way to be interested in a certain thing. And, you know, maybe by someone else following something that I don't know anything about, we could come to the same conclusion because that's how it works. We all have our own path. And there's also mainstream media stories that draw the interest of everyone, right? And that's how they kind of do it, I feel like, because you know, you could follow this path, but it's also synced up to this big other path that is being manipulated. So, a lot of questions. I have so many questions in regards to what is truly going on in this world. That's why I make these videos. But I just feel like I'm forgetting something. But I'm just going to end it there. It's definitely synced up. I think it was the Indian thing I wanted to talk about. Talked about Sheila Dick shit. It's just a hell of a name. Sheila Dick shit. Maybe that's not how you pronounce it, but that's what it looks like. Mike Pence is even synced up to the Houston area code. Oh, it was the Prime Minister of India who went there. I don't know who it was for sure, but I think we'll just leave it there. I mean, check out some links in the description. It's important. This Aurora thing is important to China. The guy, the Houston GM, his name equals 134, like Tisha B'Av. Remember that was important to the Hong Kong thing on August 11th on Tisha B'Av. We'll just leave it there. Hopefully I'll get a chance to make some more videos and go back and whatnot, or keep up with it, but I don't know. We'll see what's going on, see how many days my girlfriend has to work, and how much time I get going to my, silly job, so have a good one. Peace. Actually, I just thought of what it was. Shaquille O'Neal has been in the news like crazy too, right? Shaquille O'Neal, he had the beef with Kobe Bryant, right? And I talked about how he was the number 34. That's why it was important to Dwight Howard, who's going to be 34 years old, and Kobe tearing his Achilles when he's 34. That's why LeBron James got injured last year just before turning 34 on the Lakers' 34th game of the season, and a bunch of other things synced up to the number 34. But Shaquille O'Neal has been in the news. He had the rap battle with Damian Lillard, which I'm still trying to figure out the point of why Damian Lillard is important to that. He did go to high school at Notre Dame, which is something synced up to France, so possibly it's with that. But Shaquille O'Neal made the racist comments to Yao Ming when Yao Ming was first coming into the league and whatnot, right? So once again, it is synced up to China, right? And just a theme that I've been following pretty much all summer. And I was talking about it in 2017, and now it's just front and center and synced up to this Batman stuff. Trying to piece the puzzle together. But whatever. Have a good one. Peace.